just get right to it, man. You help dealers sell more cars, and the proof's in the pudding, and I've seen the pudding, man. Tell me how you do it. What's your main focus? How do you help so many people? How are you so effective?
Well, first of all, I appreciate that. So the secret sauce, if you will, the secret to success is actually not focusing on the selling of the car itself. This is, as I explain it, it's going to be intuitively obvious to anybody who's built a business based on referrals and based on loyal clients. You know that the secret is not to try to sell the car. The secret is to solve a problem. The secret is to do it in a meaningful way. So my focus and what my students who are able to apply this, the reason why they see such dramatic and transformative growth is because their goal is not transactional, it's relational. The goal is not to sell a car, it's to create what I call the raving fan advocate. Let me elaborate on that, Billy, just for a second, because I think it's important that your audience understands that when you enter into a relationship, and let's keep it simple. When you greet a customer, when you begin the conversation on phone or on the line or on a text message, you start as strangers most of the time. And that stranger relationship has all this tension built into it because there's all these expectations on both sides, fears and anxieties on both sides. And so this stranger relationship, if you do it well enough, breaks down some of those barriers and creates what you might call a general rapport or acquaintance relationship. Now I'm acquainted with you and I am now more comfortable with you. As I become acquainted, as I become more comfortable with you, eventually some salespeople are able to layer that into the level of friendship or where the customer feels a true affinity towards you. I actually start to like you. Well, as you could imagine, if you can just kind of take each of these possible relationships and rank them in tiers, what you'd have at the very baseline is you'd have this kind of stranger relationship where there's doubt, there's insecurity, there's fears, anxieties, and stresses. And then you move into acquaintance where I have a familiarity with you. You move into a friendship type relationship where I have an affinity, I like you. As you move through those stages, maybe even your customers not just feel friendly towards you, but actually become a fan of yours, where they actually enjoy the way you do business and they actually like what you do business so much they would want to tell somebody. So they go from a friend to a fan. Well, that's not where I want to stop. I want to go from a fan to a raving fan. A raving fan is somebody who really wants to kind of tell your story publicly and would share it. And then you have this apex kind of creature, this apex customer relationship. This is the pinnacle. And that is what I call the raving fan advocate. And the reason that's important, Billy, and this is where the secret is for anybody who wants to build a really thriving business. An advocate is a word we don't talk about a lot in sales, but it's actually the most important part of what we can do, which is cause someone to become your advocate. When someone is an advocate, they will actually endure personal injury. They will endure personal pain or suffering on behalf of the cause or the person they care about. An advocate will actually risk themselves to see what they care about win. And what I do, I think that's so impactful, is I help salespeople truly create advocates instead of just customers. And the evidence of that, by the way, is in what your customer is willing to do for you to see you win. Think about the world we're in right now, Billy. It's very political, right? I think it's fair to say we're in a political season, right? There are customers of ours that we sell a car to who, if you went to their home, you would see a yard sign of a political candidate in their yard. So you sold them a car. If you followed them to their house, you would see a yard sign of a politician or some political candidate or some political cause in their yard. They have a sign for a politician. My question to them is this: why will your customers have a sign for a politician, but they don't have your yard sign? When you sold a car last month, how come your customers didn't ask for your yard sign? How come your customers didn't say, hey, give me a yard sign, I'll put it next to my new car that says that shiny new car came from you? The truth is, if you had an advocate and not just a customer, your customer would want your yard sign. I have a student, Billy, who just got a customer to tattoo the salesperson's personal logo on their body.
Come on now.
No, Billy. A customer tattooed a car salesman's logo on their body because they're advocates and not just customers. This is the level my students get. They get this level of advocacy instead of just having happy customers. That's what everybody watching needs to ask. Not how many cars did I sell last month? How many advocates did I create last month? And that is what I do that makes a difference.
Well, man, you said so many important things right there, Jonathan. I want to touch on a few of them and just get a little more in depth on what you talked about. So you said something that we talk about very often in this office and my team. Their number one job is to solve problems. So you mentioned that. You mentioned solving problems, and I'm going to give you two terms you mentioned. You mentioned growth. I'm a growth aspirant. I'm all about teaching people or helping people grow. I'm also a salesman's advocate. I will take on personal injury to try to help salespeople. And that's why I have you on here, man. It's so important for me to help some of these salespeople. We're going to get into that specifically. But as far as growth, how important is it? How do you implement it? And tell me more about problem solving. What do you mean problem solving?
Yeah, fair enough. So when it comes to the growth component, I think that most people, when given just the objective question, would you want more? Would you like to be able to do more? Would you like to be able to achieve more? Would you like to be able to receive more? I think almost everybody would say, sure, right? I want more. I think the challenge many salespeople have in general, and dealerships in general, is that they kind of achieve a level of comfort that feels very close to, in their mind, what their ceiling is. So the average salesperson, if you just ask them, how much more do you believe you can do? What they'll give you is two answers. They'll give you the answer that they're supposed to give you, which is, oh, I'm sure I could do a lot more. But the truth is, what they actually believe in their psychology is they really feel like they're doing about the best they can. They don't actually think, oh, I'm only giving 30% of what I can do. They don't think that. They think, oh, I'm giving like 96% of what I actually can do. So the first part for growth is really to get somebody to realize that what their current standard is right now is based on what they think is normal and not what's actually possible. And what's possible is far more important than what's normal. But most people's standards are set by normal. So they look around and they go, what would be normal for someone in my store with my experience based on my customers and my traffic? And what would be normal is 20 cars or something like that. So they think that's normal. But that's not what's important. What's important is what's possible. Let me give you an example of that. So I had a store I'm working with. In fact, they're a long-term client of mine. They're in Michigan. And I'm working with this Kia dealership. And at the Kia dealership, the current record in the history of this standalone Kia store is 22 cars in a month. That's the personal best history in the store. There's a sales manager at the time who is learning Sellchology. He's learning it as a student and as a manager. He's training his people. And he comes to me and he says, hey, John, I'm a little bit frustrated because I'm watching the stuff and I'm looking at what your other students do. And I just know that if these guys would just do it, it could be a lot better for the store. But I don't think they believe yet. So he said, I'm going to step down from my manager role and I'm going to go back into sales. He says, I'm going to do it for a couple of reasons. Number one is I honestly believe that as a salesperson, I can earn more money than as a manager right now. So selfishly, he's going to do it. But second of all, he says, I think it's better for the store if I go back and sell cars and use your stuff and show these guys what's actually possible using your stuff. I think the whole store would benefit more from me as a salesperson. So he sits down with me and he says, how do I get to 30 cars as fast as possible? And I said, well, okay, since the history of the store record is 22. He says, how do I get to 30 as fast as possible? I said, if we're trying to get to 30, we're going to start with a roadmap to 40. And he says, okay. And we mapped out how to get to 40 cars as fast as possible. 9 months later, Billy, 9 months later, he hits 44. In 9 months, he hit 44 cars. Not only that, but in the month that he hit 44 cars, several of the team hit over 20. In fact, the current store average right now is over 20 cars per month per person in that store. That just a year ago, the store average was close to 12. The reason why I share that is because when you sit down and talk to somebody, it's much more important to talk about what's actually possible than what's normal. And that is one of the areas of growth I think everybody can benefit from, is asking better questions that cause your brain to imagine what's possible instead of what's normal. The second a part about what you said, which is solving problems. And I said solving problems in a meaningful way. When you focus on solving problems, what you're really doing is trying to say this person or this organization, this dealership, this manager, whoever you're working with, this manager has in their mind, a version of how it could be. And what you've got to help them do, and I think this is the mandate, by the way, Billy, of people like you and me who have influence and have the ability to serve people, is we have a couple of mandates. We're responsible to help people see things as they could be, and then help them also see things not worse than they actually are, because that's the other thing people do is they always make their problems bigger than they really are. So they think there's more obstacles than there actually are for their success. And then the third thing is simple. Help them roadmap to the way things could be. You've got to do both. You got to give them the clarity of vision of what's possible. You got to help them see that the current limitations they think are real are not as real and not as big, so that you clear the field obstacle-wise. Then you got to give them a roadmap to achieving that which they want and desire. And solving problems is really that simple. The challenge on the second part that I just mentioned is critical. Most people think that the challenges that they have, the limitations they have, is some sort of resource-based limitation. It's like managers say to me, John, you got to understand the market that we're in, there's just not good people to pull from. We can't hire good people. There's just not good people. So they think the lack of resource, which is good people in their market, is the problem. Or you have a salesperson who says, John, you got to understand, there's not a lot of traffic at our dealership. We just don't get that much traffic, or I don't get access to the BDC, or I don't get access to the internet leads. And so their thought process that limits them is a belief system based on a limitation of resources. And it is not resources, but it's resourcefulness that is their true limitation. And Tony Robbins is the one that taught me that. We believe that it's resources when the truth is it's our resourcefulness. We're just not being resourceful enough to create a solution. And that's because we've got a limiting belief. So if you want to solve problems in a meaningful way, you got to help people's imagination. They got to be able to see a new way. Now, practically speaking, let's say if we're in a car deal together and you're my customer, I'm trying to sell you a car today. I'm trying to help you buy a car, right? In the course of that conversation, you've got a problem. You've got a problem. Your payment's too high, or your vehicle's not reliable, or your vehicle's not fitting your new budget, or your new lifestyle, I should say, or something like that. I got to understand, what is it you really want as far as where do you want to go? Like in a perfect world, where would you be if you weren't where you are now? And then I have to take the current obstacles, your objections, and I got to minimize them. I got to help you see that what you think are the limitations are not really real. And then I got to get you a roadmap to getting what you want. And in a very, very fundamental, basic way, that is what selling is. It's understanding with clarity of vision what a customer's trying to accomplish, and then understanding what they perceive to be the obstacles or objections, the reasons why they don't have it, clearing the path, and helping them roadmap a way to get what they want. And we all who do that build loyal, raving fan advocates when we do it.